Welcome back to Butler on Business. My name is Alan Butler. Jason, would you please introduce our distinguished guest to the listeners?
Absolutely, Alan. We're joined on the phone now by Claus Voght. He served as a financial consultant with the London division of Merrill Lynch and more recently as the research director and strategist for an independent German bank, which, thanks largely to Mr. Voght, was one of the few to actually make money for its clients during the financial crisis. He's also the editor of Shears Guild, which is the first and largest investment letter in Europe.
Mr. Voght, how are you doing today?
Well, hi. I'm pleased to be with you today. How are you?
I'm fine. Now, are you over in Germany today?
Yes, that's right, in Berlin.
I love Germany. What a beautiful country.
Yeah, especially in summer.
Well, the story I told, we were up at the top of those mountains in Garmisch in the summer. And the people that were with me, we were wearing jackets, and everybody around us was in shorts. But we had a wonderful time over there. And like I said, what a beautiful country. And Claus, in reading your bio, I mean, you come from the Austrian School of Economics. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Well, you're talking to two fellow Austrians between me and my co-host Jason. So we're on the same page economically. Ideologically.
That's good to hear.
Well, it's good to talk to a fellow Austrian economist. Could you tell us a little bit about your book, The Global Debt Trap? And one thing I would like to put in perspective, you know, our listeners are like 99.9% of the American population. We've never known a period in our history, in our lifetimes, where the United States wasn't the most powerful economy in the world, and the dollar was not the world reserve currency. So we have a very U.S.-centric view of the world, and I thought it would be great having you on with your perspective so you could tell us about the global debt trap and what its ramifications are for the American people.
Oh, yes. So first of all, to understand the environment we are living in here now, and especially for the United States, we have to quickly run through the succession of events which got us here. We first had, during the second half of the 90s, this very huge tech or stock market bubble. And of course, it was a consequence of then Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan's wrong, reckless, easy money policy. When that bubble burst, unfortunately, our monetary leaders didn't rethink what they were doing, but they did the very same thing, but they implemented even larger doses of it, so more easy monetary policy, which resulted in a much bigger bubble, now a housing bubble. And, well, the bigger the bubble, the larger the aftermath. So we got this huge banking and economic crisis, a great recession as a result. But again, no rethinking, but doing the very, very same policy over again. Now, ultra-easy monetary and fiscal policy on a global scale, but under the lead of the United States, got us, well, an even larger problem, a problem which I call a debt trap, a global government debt trap. It's global because European countries, Japan, and unfortunately also the United States is caught in this government debt trap. And it's a trap. Why? Because we have waited so long that there is no easy way out here. There are only options available that will bring hardship, that will hurt. And the longer we wait to get our job done here in terms of returning to a sustainable, healthy path, the bigger the final adjustment crisis will unfortunately become. And what's important for the United States, they are risking the dollar's status as a world reserve currency. It's a huge privilege to have the world's reserve currency, but with this privilege comes a special responsibility. And unfortunately, not only for the United States, but for the world, have risen to this responsibility here. And if the United States loses its dominant status here, it will also lose welfare.
Well, I think that's absolutely right, Mr. Vogt. There's absolutely no chance for success on a global scale unless if the major governments of the world decide to shift back to more prudent monetary and fiscal policies. I mean, they have to get their fiscal house in order. How can governments even start? What can they do to get back on the right path?
Usually, and I discuss this in depth in this book, The Global Debt Trap. We have, let's say six possible ways or escape hatches here. One is economic growth, but since the debt problem is so large, we'd actually need an economic growth miracle, but unfortunately there is nothing like a growth miracle. Growth is always a result of sound growth-oriented free market policy, but unfortunately neither in Europe and nor in the United States are politicians moving in a pro-growth and pro-market direction here. Just they're doing the opposite here. The second major escape hatch is interest rate cuts, but unfortunately interest rates have been cut already to, near the zero, what the Fed calls a zero boundary, so this card has been played already. Then we have, like for small countries like Greece, the possibility of a bailout by other governments, by France, but you need to have real France with real deep pockets to get bailouts, and if you are, the largest guy around, like the United States is, there is nobody who could ever bail out them. Which leaves us three possibilities here which are not so pleasant. First of all, outright default on some kind of debt, being it treasury bond market debt or some promises the government has made and which it has to break. The next one is not the outright default, but the more hidden, the veiled default, which is of course money printing, and the last way out there is austerity policy, which means severe spending cuts and even tax hikes. But unfortunately, since we have waited so long, these austerity measures necessary to get us back on a healthy path would have to be extremely, hurting. And I definitely doubt here in Europe, even more than in the United States, that the population is willing to accept the necessary measures here, which leaves us with, money printing or outright default. And the most probable, because it's the most convenient way for our politicians, is probably money printing.
Claus, you hit upon a couple of subjects that we have gone over in some detail, and to me, this inflation is a cowardly form of default. An honorable way to default would be to tell the world, the people that hold our treasuries, sorry, we can't pay you back. And these entitlement programs that have engulfed us here, to tell them, I know we've promised you all this, but we don't have the money. That would be an honorable default. We're taking a cowardly default and destroying the U.S. dollar. Now, when I was in Germany, everybody wanted the dollar. My guess would be they don't want the dollar right now.
No, they don't want the dollar right now, but there are also many who have realized that the euro is no better. That we have the very same problems here in Europe as well. Finally, that's, in my opinion, that's a reason for this secular bull market in gold, which is the ultimate currency or currency surrogate here, which at least can protect you from reckless government policies. But I would like to mention just one more point when talking about inflation. Unfortunately, inflationary policy is highly unsocial policy. The gap between rich and poor is ever getting larger when you keep implementing inflationary policies, because well, the haves have possibility, well, for example, to buy gold and other real assets, but the have-nots, those who are dependent on fixed and probably low wages or on fixed income. Well, they have just no way to protect themselves against this inflationary policy, which makes them, the vast majority, to the real losers of these inflations. Yeah, I think that's very, very important. These inflationary policies are very, very unsocial.
You know, you should sit in here and do our show with us sometimes. The point I try to make is the left always says they're here to help the poor, they're here to help the poor, but the reality is their inflation is destroying the poor.
Absolutely.
Claus, how do people get a hold of this very good book you've written?
Well, yes, the book is, of course, available online. You can get it via, Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, and the larger bookstores should also have it in store here. Yeah, it's called The Global Debt Trap, and I think we cover very important topics here, which more or less everybody should know, because that's what's going on around us right now, and we will have to deal with these problems one way or the other.
Claus, listen, I appreciate your time, and I hope you will allow us to call and speak with you again sometime in the near future.
Oh, definitely. I would appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, so that's Claus Voght, The Global Debt Trap. Thank you, Claus.